Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you get more information and listen to previous shows at our website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my lovely downtown studio in Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Valerie Naiman, who's an author and story songwriter. And Valerie, you can wave to all your fans and friends who might be watching this. So you want to wave to everybody? Okay, that is Valerie. Valerie, boy, a native of Asheville, which is
no, not native.
Oh, it says a native. It says a native of Asheville. Were you born in Asheville?
Really? No.
Okay.
I'm almost a native. I came here in 1980.
Well, you say that. So that means when you're officially from Asheville, when you say, like, if people ask you where are you from, you say Asheville now?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because with me, it was like the first couple of years you say you're from Long Island or wherever you're from. And after 10 years, you can say you're from Asheville. So
right.
Anyway, Valerie Naiman is an author, story, songwriter, singer, local Echo Village founder, and a mama to goats, chickens, and honeybees. She's worked in film and television industry for many years as a costume designer and opened the first costume company in Asheville in 1980. She's now in the process of pre-launching her book, Mystic Masquerade, and Adoptees Search for the Truth. And so the first question I asked then, Valerie, and we didn't answer it actually yet, is you were born where?
Miami, I think.
Okay, you think
it's
okay.
Complicated.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit.
I know I was conceived in Los Angeles.
Okay, but you grew up as a kid where? In Miami?
Coconut Grove.
Okay.
Miami and Coconut Grove.
And so when you were growing up as a kid, did you always know you wanted to be this, we'll say, this person with a lot of eclectic interests? As a kid, what do you want to be?
I never knew because I was very confused. I never fit in. And so I tried on different characters my whole life.
Okay. But at some point in time, you chose one character, you chose to one thing. What age was that? Was it in high school, or when did you decide for a direction?
College.
Okay. And that was...
Yeah, I went to FSU and I was in, I wanted to know the meaning of life. So I was a philosophy major, then I was a religion major, and then I realized the whole thing was a drama. And so I became a theater major, and I met Lily Tomlin. I worked with her and she was like, really, my whole life is an illusion. And I thought, yes, you've got that.
Well, so when you were a theater major, which is kind of interesting about your background, were you a behind the scenes person, or did you want to act, and what was your direction?
I started as an actress. I did acting, directing, and then I finally got into costuming when I went to the University of Miami for my master's, because I got offered a scholarship and it was the #1 party school in the nation. Of course, everyone wants to be an actress or an actor. Who wants to be a costumer? It's kind of a niche, and I love niches.
Which I love, because you say that, yeah, one of the problems with actors, even in the Asheville area, they have this little niche, like you said, and they just want to be an actor, right. But you can only hire so many actors, but there are equal number of people behind the scenes. And I have to say, I think you're the only second costume designer I've met and had on the show. So like I said, very few out there. So that's kind of cool. When did when was the first show you did costumes for? Do you remember?
Oh, I started doing costumes while I was in college. I did tons of them, and I went to different contests and won the American Humorous costume for One-Eyed, One-Horned, Flying Purple People Eater, which is all stuff I got from recycled materials. That was fun. But my first big job, before I was out of college, I was working for a lot of commercials and had big sponsors. And so I became pretty well known in my field. And by the time, right before I graduated with my master's, I landed the world premiere costume designer for Equus, which became very famous.
And what, you were involved in the very beginning?
Yes, I was the costume designer in the very beginning.
Oh, how exciting was that? So that was
was real exciting.
To me, it is. So you were doing you were doing shows then? How you got into movies as well?
Yeah, I did. Most of the money was in commercials, but I did series. I was the NBC. I worked as a costumer for NBC. I was the costume designer for the all new Howdy Doody show. That was fun.
I didn't know
And
that there was a new one. I missed it.
oh
You know,
yeah.
as
And
a
then
kid.
Buffalo Bob moved up here, he moved to Hendersonville.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So as a kid, I remember
Yeah.
seeing Howdy Doody show. I didn't know they came back afterwards. Did they?
Oh yeah, big
How,
time.
how long did that last? The show. Do you remember?
I worked on that show for about a year and a half. And I don't remember how long the show lasted. It was 2 or 3 years, and then it went into a another series that I got involved with that I actually forgot the name of.
So did you actually get to develop costumes for Howdy Doody or Buffalo Bob or
Not the puppets.
right?
Patty Blackwood did that. But I did everybody else's, and I had to recreate all that crazy fabric that Clarabelle wore, and Buffalo Bob was always hunched over, and so I'd keep a safety pin in the back of his shirt. I told him I was going to do that if he didn't stand up straight. So whenever he leaned over, he'd go like this.
Oh, is that a great story? So,
yeah, it worked
but
well.
by the way, we'll talk about the book you're writing a little bit, but I could see that'd be a cool book for you to write. Also, your experiences, some of these are just really cool to listen to. So you are doing costume design. How'd you get up to Asheville?
I gave up the film and television industry, and that's a long story of the reason I did. But I had a friend who had 500 acres up here, and I said, draw me a map. I'm going to the mountains. So I did, and that was in 1980, and I wasn't able to get a job anywhere. I was too overly qualified. I mean, I offered costume jobs, but nobody'd pay me anything. And so my mentor from college said, open a costume shop. And so I did the research, and there was only about 50,000 people here at that time. And all indications were, ain't gonna work. And I'm like, yeah, well. So I did. I opened up Carolina Costume Company. That was 1980. We weren't even in the phone book. Bought the old mayor of Asheville's house because nobody wanted it because he had hung himself or something. And it was a turn of the century Queen Anne with turrets. And I made it into this big haunted type of house and had big Dracula capes all over. And I hired all my friends and dressed them up in costume and sent them out on the streets with flyers that said, if we don't have it, we'll catch it for you. And so that year I made hundreds of costumes and, 24/7. We got 13 first prize winners, and that was the beginning.
And you're making the costumes for what, people for parties and stuff, or
We opened the month before Halloween. So that's what that was about. And then throughout the year, of course, there's all the other things happening. And then, it was, nobody's doing balloon deliveries and acts for hire. So I created a balloon delivery service with acts for hire. And I even did some. I was Zelda, the psychic, and I would find out a little information and go with my magic crystal wand and balance their chakras and say silly things. And then I thought, we got all these calls for strippers. And I'm like, strippers? How am I going to sell humor with that? And it's like, I got it. The chicken stripper. And it happened because I found this pair of guys' boxer shorts at the, Goodwill, and it had chickens all over it. And so that was the base. And then I made this whole chicken costume, and, piece by tasty piece, he would strip out of it. And it started with the guy, I sent him with a boom box, and he'd come in with the boom box, whack, 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 whack. And then at the end, it was hysterical. And at the end, I had sewn a tail on the back of his boxer shorts with an egg that you pulled out of it with Velcro. And so at the end, he'd pull it out and present it to the recipient. And when you opened it, all this confetti came out with this sign that said, you've been laid and here's your egg to prove it. So it was really good. As a matter of fact, a year or two later, somebody else opened a balloon delivery service around town, and they had a chicken stripper.
How long did you do that for?
Oh, let's see, till I had a vision. I did that for almost a decade, I think. I turned it into the Second Workers Zone Cooperative in Asheville. I think Stone Soup was the first. And then I got myself into sacred garments and visiting with different Indigenous elders and recreating their garments. And I was taking an Incan Chasqui to visit with a Hopi elder, one of the elders that have tablets, Manuel Huga, something, I don't remember right off his last name. But that night I had a vision. We slept in the cornfield, and it was the night before their harvest. And the vision just changed my life. I sold the costume shop, sold the balloon business, and focused. It took me 4 years to figure out how to execute the vision. And the vision is manifested, and it's the first permaculturally designed and planned eco village of North America. And it happens to be like 40 minutes from Asheville.
I was going to ask you about that for the benefit of those who don't know what an eco village, including yours truly, is. What's an eco village?
Well, an eco village, you'll get different stuff from different people, but to be able to be a sustaining village, you need a minimum of 150 people so that, let's see, a shoemaker can make a living, so that you can be able to provide your needs within the village, within the community. 150 people's about it. So I started the search for the land, had a big list of what was needed to do it. And so, yeah, when I finally found it, I'd been meeting. I started a group called Southern Appalachian Region of Intentional Communities, and we would meet, and people would come in and get excited about the vision. And people came in and out and in and out. And finally, when the land was found, everybody got cold feet. So I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I could have contract on the land anyway. I just knew. Yeah.
Where's that land?
It's 360, I think it's 64 acres now in Black Mountain. Yep.
Okay.
And totally off the grid. There's over 100 people that live there now, and there's families. And I created our own currency. It was the third currency I've created too. This one was called leaps. And so for an hour of trade, you get a leap. So everybody had to put in a certain amount of time to the community. And if you put in more, you'd get issued these little paper leaps. And so a leap was like 1 hour. Now we have leaps, jumps, skips, hops, all of those too. And so, I mean, because how do you share resources within a community? We have our trees, who gets that? Who gets our boulders and rocks? And anyway, so you buy them for leaps.
Is that still in existence?
Yes.
Do you live there by chance?
No, I did 14 years of Earth Haven, and I was also involved in starting another center in the area called the Earth Center in the Peace Chamber. And we were bringing in different Indigenous elders to work with, Donnie Yahoo, and just Starhawk came. Actually, Starhawk stayed in my place at Earth Haven. But we brought in different elders from different tribal areas and shamans, things like that. And I met this one man who had come to the United Nations Peace Conference, and we got him to come to Asheville, and we had a retreat. And during that retreat, it's like the synchronicities were so amazing to me. I was just really paying attention, and I'm thinking, who is this guy in an orange dress anyway? Well, at the end, when we said goodbye, I was the last one to say goodbye to him. And he said, you come to India. And I'm like, India? I never thought about going to India before in my life. And over the next week, it just kept happening. I met a woman named Sari. And then it was like, there was so many things that happened around India. I thought, all right, I'm going to go for 2 weeks. So I was going to go for 2 weeks. I got a ticket, packed my bag. And on the way, I'm thinking, all my friends that have been there have told me, oh God, they got sick, they lost weight. So my thinking was, all right, I'm only going to eat things that I can peel. Then I'll be okay. So as it turns out, I got gifted a whole big thing of bananas when I got there for prasad. Everybody else got one piece. And when this man saw me, he laughed and put the one piece down and gave me a bunch of bananas. That's how the synchronicities were happening. And it rolled from there. After 2 weeks, I had made such a big difference in India. People in India pretty much don't have organizational skills. I can tell you that. And I realized with all the skills I had, setting up Earth Haven Echo Village, I could do a lot of good there. And I saw an infant on the street with a dog chewing on its ear. And I'm like, oh God, this is happening in the world I'm living in. I have to do something. So I ended up helping to start villages in India that are alternatives to orphanages, women's shelters, and old age homes. And it became very successful. I did it all by donation. And the 2 weeks I hadn't done that during that 2 weeks, by the way, but after 2 weeks, I was invited to stay longer. And I had been able to be with who became my teacher, the same man, Swami Parmanand, that I met here in Asheville. And so I said yes. It was when the tsunami hit Sri Lanka, I believe it was, because I was trying to give my ticket away to somebody. They're not cheap, and wasn't able to. And that night before my flight, I went down to the Ganga River, Mata Ganga, and I threw my ticket into the Mother River.
By the way, as I'm listening to this, I see this as another book, like you've had some life, but I see just this experience could be a tremendous book unto itself. So you gave up the ticket. How long did you wind up staying in India for?
14 years.
as just doing all these various projects?
Yeah, it was really 11 years. And then I went back and forth, and the government kind of got a hold of what I was doing, and that was a big project other people were involved in then, and it called Vatsalya Gram. Gram means place, and Vatsalya is mother's love, so the place of mother's love. So now they took the whole thing over, and they're opening up one in every state of India. So it's exciting. I passed my last hat.
Did you speak the language?
No, not a word when I got there. I mean, I had a little book, English, and so one day I'm going out. I didn't realize that my teacher, I call him my Guru Dev now, I didn't realize how famous he was, and I got to travel with him, which hardly anybody does. And we go into one place, and there's motorcycles on both sides, and people are throwing rose petals on the car, and we get behind this giant stage, and we're rushed in, and I'm pushed in onto the stage. And I sat down beside my teacher, trying to hide in the back, and he motioned me to come front. And after that happened a couple of times, he finishes his big thing, and he looks at me and he goes, "Sing." I thought, he doesn't know I can sing. And so I sang Amazing Grace, and got a standing ovation from thousands of people. And I became a thing for the youth. I have blonde hair, blue eyes, and I learned to speak the language. I learned Sanskrit. How I learned was songs. I took things like, one of the famous prayers of Om Sarve Bhagwanta Sukhinaha. So things like that. May all the people of the world be in joy. And I would sing the English and the Sanskrit, and that's how I started learning the language. And it's a beautiful language. Like the first word I learned, one of the first words I learned blew me away. I don't know the reason I learned this word, but the word was enemy, right? And so enemy is dushman. So douche means bad, crap, no good.
Right.
And man has two meanings. So these two meanings are mind and heart. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And so the further I got into it, I realized, so the real meaning is if you have an enemy, it's you that has the bad heart and the bad mind. It's such an amazing language. I think it needs to be taught in every school.
When was the last time you were in India?
Oh, I've been back like 4 years now. Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I don't know when I'll go again, and then COVID hit, and then I got on my whole search to find out who I was again.
We'll talk a little bit about that search in a second, but the curious thing to me, or what I'm curious about, is what got you to leave India and come back to this country?
Well, they changed the visas. That was it. It was,
Okay.
then you had to be out of the country for 6 months. Before that, I'd be able to go to the Nepal border. I mean, they knew me. I'd go across, and they'd all welcome me. You have to go through like 7 different stages coming in and out. And one time, some of the officers came back with me because they wanted to meet my teacher. And then I would go to Sri Lanka. I'd go to Thailand. I just skip out for a week, renew my visa. And I also ended up traveling internationally with my teacher as his foreign assistant. So we went to South America twice, up the Amazon, visiting with, some tribes, which is another whole story. And it's and New Zealand. And I lived with the Maori tribe there. There's so many places that we went. Dubai and England and all over Europe and then touring all through America. And so I had ample chances to renew my visa.
Because I ask in that listening to you, fascinating stuff. Each of these stories is almost a whole book unto itself. But then you told me, we're going to talk about it, that instead are turning your attention to another book. I guess you're in the process of writing or finishing it. I love the
Yes.
title, Mystic Masquerade, An Adoptee's Search for Truth.
Right.
What gave you the idea to write this book?
Well, I got very serious about finding out who I was after my adopted parents passed. And I did a DNA test and didn't get anywhere. Then I did another DNA. I didn't get anywhere. Then I did a third DNA and I didn't get anywhere. I mean, most people will find something if you do one DNA test, but mine was layers under layers under layers of lies and secrets. And so I finally got a hit. I got a first cousin, right? Well, actually, that was on my paternal side. I found my mother first. So because somebody on Ancestry had put up their tree based on what they had been told. In actuality, it wasn't true. But this woman turned out to be my mother. It was his not grandmother, aunt or something. And so I searched, I found her. Unbelievable. I made contact. I got a search angel. I had investigators. I had the whole shebang. And when I found her, it was through somebody else that contacted her, and she didn't fess up. But I knew 100%. And so anyway, she finally agreed to meet me if I'd be a secret. And so I got to go down and meet her. Here's a picture of her. She was 94 when I met her. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it's a great photo.
Anyway,
yeah,
she was 94, totally independent like me, just as wild, unbelievable. And we laughed a lot. We talked a lot. She lived alone. And I went down and spent a week with her. And we were fighting the first day on who's the queen. So I had to be the princess.
Did she fess up that she was your mother?
Yeah.
Eventually?
Yeah, she had to. I got her, I had her do a saliva test, this kind of stuff. Yeah, and I sent in, I got her to sign for I threw my first birthday party, because since I knew I really did have a mummy. And for my gift, she agreed to sign papers so I could get my original birth certificate.
Oh, really?
And I sent that whole thing in, and it came back saying that's not your mother's name. And I knew she was. So I had her do a DNA test too, 100%. Turns out she lied about her name on the birth certificate.
So did that eventually get resolved?
No, I have 2 fake birth certificates. I don't really know where I was born. I said, well, was I born in, Edgewater Hospital in Miami? And she's like, I don't remember anything. I don't remember going to a hospital. don't remember having you, and I don't remember all the pain you gave me. I thought, oh, that's really sweet, isn't
She's
it?
still around?
She passed away Christmas.
Well, so she eventually admitted she was your mother. What was your childhood like? Did she raise you, or you had somebody else raise you?
My adopted parents raised
Okay,
me.
they adopted you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was adopted and to an older family. My father's side was strict Orthodox Jews, that he jumped out of that. My mother's side opened the first health food store in Miami. And so they were kind of total opposites, but I got a wide variety of stuff, and I was my mother's showpiece. So she put me through every kind of theatrical thing you can imagine. That's where it started. By 3 years old, they were taking me to the delis on Sunday, put me on the table, and I'd tap dance. I was their little Shirley Temple, you
Did you
know.
enjoy that?
Oh, I had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only when they tried to send me to charm school that just did not take.
So talk
But
back to the book then a little bit. So you meet this woman who was your actual mother.
yeah,
How long did that take you to find her?
oh, years, decades,
Yeah.
decades. Unbelievable how long it took. And then it took longer to find my father. He was even more elusive. And so, you know, after a while, she told me his name, but there was nothing in any of my 3 DNA tests that had that surname. But then I got the break of a first cousin match, and it had to be on my paternal side. Turns out it was my sister. And I ended up flying to Vegas to meet her and my brother, who happened to have been born half brother. He was born 3 months after me. And so we've had a good time getting to know each other. And so I got all these photographs of my father. The guy was great looking, and he was a pilot. He was a captain. He had a boat, a plane, about a own construction company. I come back to my mother and I'd say, what was the matter with you? Because she told me he asked her to marry him. I said, what's the matter with you? Oh, he loved me just too much. You just don't know how much. And I said, there's got to be more to it. And she goes, well, you know, he couldn't dance.
And
Unbelievable. I have loved to dance my entire life.
did you get to meet your father too?
No, he was 6 feet under.
Oh, by that time. So talk about the
I got to
experience.
stand on his tombstone that said, I did it my way.
Well, that was just so great.
Yep.
Talk about the
I wrote a
experience.
song about it.
Talk about the experience of meeting your half brother and half sister, I guess. What was that like?
Oh, it was very strange. I was going to stay at her house. We had a really good talk on the phone. She picked me up at the airport. I mean, I got a ticket as soon as I found her. Picked me up at the airport. And she said, well, we've decided you should stay on the strip just to get to know Vegas. I said, oh, no. I'm only here. I really don't have an interest. I'm only here to be with you. Well, she said, I said, she insisted. I said, okay, well, I'll pay for that. I'd already told her I found an Airbnb near, and oh no, you'll stay with us. But anyway, she picked me up. No, it's one of our places. And she drops me at Caesar's Palace. So that was pretty strange. I'm not a, Vegas Strip type of, I mean, I just really wanted to see them. Well, as it turned, and then I got to go to their house the next day and meet my brother and the rest of the family. And her husband was like, what are you doing here? Some people don't like this, And he had put me through 2 days of intense interrogation and investigation, because I got him on the phone first before he would let me even talk to her. And then he said, well, all right, I know you're not a terrorist, so now if she wants to talk to you, that's up to her. I said, I don't think it's in my genes. But it was intense, because then he took her away to their beach house and they were fighting over me being there. So good thing is my brother and I had a great time together. And so one of the most interesting things I learned was who my grandfather was. my grandfather, oh my God, they had all these newspaper articles about him. He was a famous producer. He produced No, No, Nanette.
Okay, wow.
He had theaters in Chicago and Los Angeles, and unbelievable. It's like, oh my God, that's where I got all this from.
I was going to say, now we know the interest in theater, but let me ask you, this part of your family you discovered, are you still in touch with them at all?
I'm in touch with my brother. As a matter of fact,
Very nice.
he came to see me after I left Vegas. No, I wasn't able to get a response from anybody for a couple of years, and then my brother, out of the blue, texted me, goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I haven't got a hold of you. I've been sick. I almost died, and I have to see you." And I moved to Maine. I'm living with my daughter, and so anyway, they drove from Maine down here this Halloween, and we had a great time. And then they moved to Savannah, and I just went there last week and spent a week writing my next book.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. To talk about the first one, though, or this upcoming book. How did you start that, and how long did it take you?
My book?
Yeah.
Well, I have journals through years and years and years. It's good. I have stacks of journals. So it's like finding my mother, the whole process was so intense. And I started joining all these, adoptee Facebook sites and all this kind of stuff and getting to know them. And it's like, you got to write a book. And so, I mean, I had to just take all my journals and put it together, but it's involved with my life story. Like there's a chapter called Tattoo about what happened in New Zealand, which is another amazing story. There's a chapter about Asheville. There's a chapter, which has a story I want to tell you because it's almost Easter, that happened with my costume company that I think you would love to hear. As a matter of fact, it just came out. They put it in the Mountain Express this week.
Oh,
on
okay.
the front cover, it says Bunny Brouhaha.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'll look for it. The article's in this week's Mountain Express?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it came out Wednesday.
Right.
So I didn't see any more. I went to pick up a few and they're gone. But it's got a picture of my Easter bunny there and a picture of me and the story.
Okay, look forward to it. Thank you.
Pretty funny. I could tell you quick if you want to hear it.
Give me the Reader's Digest version. You got it.
Oh, okay, Reader's Digest version. We always were in the parades. It was a St. Patrick's Day Easter parade. And I had my costume characters there. We had a float, and a cop came up to the Easter bunny and told him he had to take off his mask because it was illegal to wear a mask in public. I thought, oh my God, this is a joke. And so it wasn't a joke. I went back and I staged a photo shoot with Keystone cops and shackles and handcuffs and the bunny in big sunglasses, and took pictures, sent it to all the media. And before the day, it went coast to coast, the story. I invited the mayor. I asked the mayor to invite the Easter Bunny to Asheville. Never got a response. So I staged a big protest downtown in front of City Hall. And Young's Transportation gave me an air-conditioned box. I filled it with costume characters. We went down. There were already people down. There were signs going, "Free the Easter Bunny, free the Easter Bunny." And then the Easter Bunny comes out last, and everybody's cheering for the Easter Bunny. It was so funny. And I think the mayor finally came out, I think, out of sheer embarrassment, and so did the police chief, and they gave a fond welcome to the Easter Bunny to Asheville.
What year was this about?
80, I forgot.
Okay.
It's in the article. It was in the 80s.
Okay,
I think it was 86.
Sounds like a great article. Let's just conclude with the book itself. So you finished the book. When's it coming out?
Summer solstice. Right now I am in the final editing. The cover is my cover's done, and I just got all the ISBN numbers, so now it's got to go through formatting and printing.
Well, please let me know when that comes out, because I'm anxious to get a hold of it.
It's also an audiobook, and that's pretty much done. An audiobook, ebook, plus there's kind of a cosmic opera too, with different songs and story songs about the whole journey.
And so now that book's done, you just mentioned before you're working on another book now?
Well, more than one. This one I'm working on now that I went and wrote for a week last week is I haven't titled it yet, but it's about Earth Haven and how it happened, the whole story of the vision and Earth Haven, what we did, and all of the numerous things involved in setting it up. Because I used to teach that class, how do you start community? And I taught it last year too, and at the Southeastern Permaculture Gathering, which is a great gathering. I helped focalize that last year.
If folks want to find out more, either about this upcoming book or new book, or just keep in touch with you in general, what's the best bet?
I post a couple of times a week now because I'm starting to promote my book on Instagram. That's Val Author. I'm also Valerie Naiman on Facebook, and that's a new one. And then I'm also on Facebook, Valerie Naiman Parmanand, which is kind of hard to spell, but that was the name given to me in India when I became something else.
Well, I encourage folks to get a hold of it. I just started looking at the one website, one Facebook page you have, where I appreciate the fact you're starting to share your stories, and they're, very interesting every couple of days. So if you want to find out more about Valerie Naiman, Instagram, Facebook,
website.
I'm sorry, website is what?
Website, you can go to valauthor.com, and that takes you directly to my main Valerie Naiman. I don't say Valerie Naiman because a lot of people don't know how to spell it. So there's two of them. They both link together, valauthor.com. There you can hear story songs. You can hear, I'll put this podcast up there, and there's a chapter of my book you can listen to, and freebies, and yes, please do.
Well, that certainly sounds the best bet for not only folks, but me as well, to keep in touch with you. And you've lived certainly, Valerie, I imagine people tell you this, but you certainly have lived so far a pretty interesting life. Would you say so?
Oh, I'd say so, yeah.
Fascinating. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Valerie Naiman, for being my guest on this BLAINESWORLD podcast. Also, I'd like to thank my producer, Cappy Sassetti. I look forward to having you join me each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify. You name it, you can find us. Thanks, Valerie. We'll be in touch.
Thanks so much. I've really had fun sharing.